Hi there. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. So here we are. And it's a Tuesday live, Tuesday Tidbits, I've decided to call it. Um, Interesting things going on. I got a call from the Liberal team for the local candidate because I put my name out. And so I'm going in for some training tomorrow and figure out how I'm going to best serve the community with this. Eek! I said I prefer door knocking to phone because people don't answer their phones. And they're likely to say goodbye as soon as you say, "Hi, I'm your liberal. Here representing the liberal candidate." And so tomorrow I'm training, but also I want to find out more about this liberal candidate. He's on council in White Rock. So he's been very much a part of this community for a while, a long while now, and very involved in different community causes. So I want to find out more. I don't know a lot about him, but just what I've read online. And I do know I had talked to him once. His storefront window was broken, and I thought it had something to do with the gay pride flag on his window, and went in to express my, condolences and concerns. And he said, no, that wasn't it. So I went, oh, okay. Anyway, it's a beautiful, beautiful store. It does beautiful arrangements, beautiful floral arrangements. So that's tomorrow. But today, so much stuff going on. So in Wisconsin, the judge that they wanted in got in. Elon Musk failed in his attempt to coerce the Wisconsin public into voting for his preferred candidate. So, strike one for democracy. Elon Musk believes that democracy, this, I don't know what to do with this, democracy is at stake in the Western world because of what is going on in the US. And I agree with him, but not in the way he means democracy is at stake. So much so that um, a lot of European countries are getting ahead of the game. In Italy, they said to the woman she'd embezzled funds for her I believe her campaign. Anyway, she was found guilty, sentenced to 5 years in jail, and as a um, can't run for position in politics for I don't know how long. So I mean, imagine if the U.S. did that. Um, Trump wouldn't be in. As simple as that. So the U.S. is a cautionary tale. And that's why I'm going out canvassing for the Liberals, because the U.S. is a cautionary tale. And in the U.S., Tucker Carlson has basically put a stamp of approval on Poilievre by saying that Carney will be absolutely horrible. So there are a lot of right wing, far right wing. I'm not talking about your regular center of the road Republicans. I'm talking about the ones that are far right that would like to see a very conservative government in Canada. They have an agenda. Now, the agenda um, is not particularly Trump's agenda. It is Peter Thiel's agenda, who put back J.D. Vance to get J.D. Vance into the position that he's in. And they're basically just, I think, just my belief, for entertainment purposes only, in my opinion, is that they're just letting Trump do what he wants to do right now, encouraging him kind of. And Trump's not dumb, but he's also, I believe, being influenced. So, anyway, he's doing what he's doing. They're not putting any guardrails around him because there's Project 2025, and that's the end game. The end game is to burn it all down to the ground in the U.S., burn it all to the ground, and then to have their own people in there to build it into what they want, which is a Handmaid's Tale kind of scenario. So, that said, when you have Tucker Carlson and J.D. Vance's best friend is Giovanni, who is a conservative MP in the Oshawa area is best friends with J.D. Vance. There are too many connections there. There are way too many connections. And when you think about the money that went in to support the convoy, I mean, there was Canadian money in that, but there was also American money coming in to support the convoy. Why would that be? Why are they so interested in our politics? Are we a threat to them? I don't know. Are we a threat because we're so democratic and we have universal health care is imperfect as it is, that we've got dental care for seniors now and kids, that we have $10 a day childcare in some provinces that agreed to be with, to go in with that. Are they afraid of what Canada represents? And I'm hearing, yes, that's it exactly. They're afraid of what Canada represents. So I'm hearing they don't want their citizens getting all uppity because there's enough uppity citizens in the U.S. who want all of that. And when they can see a country that has that and is functioning well and beginning to thrive in a way, as it's finding its feet, as we're beginning to shed the shackles of this, mm, and it's quite close. It's not. I want to say shed the shackles of the MAGA Canadians, and that's. I don't know. I don't know how close this is going to be. I don't think it's going to be the total windfall that I would like to see, but I do believe that the Liberals will get in again. Carney's Liberals will get in again. And he's distinguishing himself between the Trudeau Liberals. He goes, this is a new Liberal government. And he's right, because he's more to the center than he is to the far left. So in these times, we want Carney in with his experience, his economical experience, who's not going to undermine what's already part of the Canadian fabric. He's a Canadian. He's a small town Canadian guy that made it big. Went on a scholarship down to Harvard, I believe. Partial assistance, which meant he worked whilst he was there because he didn't get a full scholarship, I don't believe. Neither here nor there. He might have. Anyway, he has experience to do what needs to be done. So he also will not undermine the fabric of what makes Canadians Canadians. And that is our universal health care system, our ability to support our seniors, our ability to provide good education for all children, all the different social services that are ingrained in our fabric. And imperfect as that's being implemented right now because of the costs of things, and as we have to figure out a better way to serve without privatizing. And the Conservatives will privatize. She's already doing that. Daniel Smith is already doing that in Alberta, handing off a lot of the Alberta healthcare to some private hospitals. And Doug Ford's doing the same thing. So Carney knows what he's talking about, and because of his economic background, and I've talked about this before with you guys, he knows what he's doing. And when he says that he's going to do something, then he has a knowledge to implement it. Meanwhile, Poilievre is making all these promises of things that he's voted against over and over and over again. He's voted against so much stuff, all the things that Canadians have come to love and appreciate, and he's voted against the things that will help our country and our population to thrive. So have the Liberals been perfect in the last 9 years? No, they haven't. And did they make missteps? They made missteps on immigration. But again, the immigration came in because during the pandemic, they couldn't get enough Canadians to work. So they allowed Canadian companies like Tim Hortons and Walmart and whatever to hire immigrants on visas, and they came from India, most of them, to work in Canada in the jobs that they couldn't fill. So There was a reason for it. Now, also, a lot of the students came in because Doug Ford had underfunded all the universities in Ontario. So, where do they get their money from? They get their money from foreign students who pay a lot more money than Canadian students do. So, you got to look at all the ins and outs of this before you um, make it big. You have to weigh everything up, you know, and what would you do? Think of it like your own home, your own expenses in your home, and think about what would you do? What would you do to balance everything out? What can you do? What are you willing to do to make things work for you? So some people will have big missteps when they're doing that, and they'll put it all on their credit card, which is not a good thing. And some will do a bit of both, you know, put it on a credit card and cut back. I mean, or a line of credit. So I'm going to stop right there because they want me to stop. They're going, stop it, Linda, stop it. So I'm stopping. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull from a deck that I have used for years and haven't used in a long time, a Doreen Virtue deck. And only because I like it, because it's got one word on it, and it's just a way to, and I mean literally one word, not a phrase. And it's been a long time since I've used it, and yet they're like old friends, so I'm assuming, and I'm hearing good assumption, Linda, that it will do me well. So my intent when I'm pulling a card here is that I'm going to ask a question, and you can feel free to ask questions too and see what comes up. I'm going to ask a question. And I'm going to ask my biases to just kind of take a back seat, and I need to really listen carefully to my guides. Okay, so given that, my first card will be I was going to ask, will Pierre Poilievre destroy Canada? I'm hearing no, he won't. And then I'm hearing with it not right away. But he will push the envelope because he sees what's going on down the States. And so there's ability to, you know, kind of push the envelope more than any other politician might do. Any other politician in Canada would do. So there's that. But we have a lot of guardrails in place, and there will be big pushback. I mean, huge pushback, because if he becomes PM, and that the energies are kind of not, is kind of in the middle right now. He's not going to have a majority. No, he's not going to have a majority. So, first card, answered prayers. So does this mean Canadians answered prayers? Does this mean Liberals answered prayers? Does it mean my answered prayers? Or does it mean Conservative answered prayers? Ooh, I hate to say it, but I'm getting Conservative answered prayers, which is okay if he has a minority government, because he won't get anything done. He won't get anything done. And he will have to work with the Liberals and the NDPs. And that's something he doesn't do well or easily, hasn't done at all. So this is about working together. Canadians have to be ready to work together, to have that give and take, and not to use the bully energy that's going on down the US. So that's a lesson for him, for all of his supporters. The bully energy is not an energy that gets things done. So there'll be a lot of stagnation in Parliament if they get in as the governing party. Okay. And I'm hearing Carney will still be the leader. And oh, he's going to put some sticks in the spokes of those wheels. Okay. So, the energy of that. So, the energy of it. So, we're looking at, is it 50-50? Is it 60-40? How's it leaning for Poilievre? 50% he gets in, or 60% he gets in, 70? I'm hearing 70. So it's not, there's still room there. There's still room and there's still time. Okay. You gotta know my bias is set aside when I'm telling you this. So, next card. Carney. Healing. So, that makes total sense to me, because that means that Carney, when he, in whatever role he plays, if he becomes Prime Minister, or rather if he stays Prime Minister, his role will be healing Canada from the divisive politics that Poilievre has set in motion. I'm hearing that if Carney wins, and again, it may end up being a minority government as well, that there will be dissent in the Conservative Party because Poilievre can't pull it off. Can't pull it off. So, despite that, you're going to have a lot of disappointed and unsettled energy around that. And given the events down the state, you'll probably get that the election was rigged, all that kind of stuff, just because they can do it, right? Because there's already a template put in place. So, Carney's role will be a healing role, no matter where, no matter what happens. So Carney's, the percentage of Carney getting in, I'm hearing is 80%. How's that go, 680? So his is stronger, but it's not a given. And so there's still work to be done. Because in a lot of ways, he's too intelligent for a lot of Canadians, because he's so calm and collected when he's talking. And he's not spouting slogans. And he's explaining things. And his explanations can be a little bit long. I'm reading his book, and the book, it's taking me a while to get into it, because there's a history of economics that leads into the whole thing. And so can I skip by it? Sure, I could skip by it. I'm so damn tempted to skip by it. But I thought maybe this is a good thing. Now, I don't know how much of this is sticking in my brain. But the history of economics and trade in the world, I mean, since the historical, back hundreds of years, is what he studied to come to where he is today. So that's the man that's talking to reporters. That's the man that's being very thoughtful in his responses, very probably over-explaining things to people, when a lot of people would prefer Pierre Poilievre's kind of off-the-cuff remarks, his smarmy smile. That smile does nothing. His smile is disingenuine. It's like someone said, you got to smile more, and he smiles more, and I'm like, eek, no, don't do that. He's not very authentic, and I'm hearing that's because he's not very sure of himself. He's always been that kid that didn't feel like he fit in, and until he found his place in politics and something to, I'm hearing, butt up against. And so that's his whole personality, is just something to fight against. That's what gives him his energy. There's always something to fight against, and he picked a lane, and he's not veered from it at all. He's just stuck in this one lane for his whole political career that started when he was very, very young. So he's in his late 40s now, and he's entitled to a full pension when he was 31. So that's a long time to be in politics. And he stayed in the same lane, and his views have not changed. And I don't know about you, but I would think some of your views have changed over the years if you got more experience and more wisdom and looked at the broader world around you and realized that things aren't always as they seem, that there's gray areas. And for him, there's no gray areas. And it must, I'm trying to think of the word, it feels like it's hard for him to say that he's for daycare and pharmacare and dental care and all the things that he's saying he's for that he's voted against. It feels like it really sticks him to say that because he doesn't believe it. He doesn't believe it at all. The core of his being, he does not believe it. But it's all he's got now because he wants to be PM so freaking badly that he will sell his old self out to get there and then do what his old self has always done. He's not a tiger that's changed his stripes, believe me. I don't know. You think about that. You think, has he changed his stripes? I'm seeing a big no, flashing red lights. No, he hasn't. He is who he is. So he hasn't changed his stripes in the last 6 months when everything was about Trudeau. He doesn't have Trudeau to bang up against anymore. So now it's whatever he picks, and that's not been working for him. So now he's swung to the other way. So if you want to believe him, you can believe him. So that's that from this deck. So the other bit, is there another bit to this? Did you see that Cory Booker was 25 hours speaking on the floor in the Congress? 25 hours he stood there and spoke, read off emails from constituents, informed the American public about what the current administration was doing, the effect that it had on people, which is why he was reading the emails from all these concerned constituents. What's going to happen? You cut Medicaid or Social Security gets what's going to happen? My husband has Parkinson's. The pharmaceuticals for that are expensive. Who's going to pay for that? So there are all sorts of things that are going on right now. So 25 hours standing on his feet, talking. And the only break he had from talking when as a few Democrats asked him a long-winded question. And he was very grateful for that, very grateful for that. So when you think about what he did, think about the energy that he put out in the world doing that, the energy of resistance, of inspiration, of education, of hope, just to see someone stand up live for 25 hours talking. So there are pockets of that, going on around the states. There's a Democrat congresswoman that's created a organization, can't remember what it's called now, J. Powell, Google J. Powell, and resistance organization, something like that. And so they're doing Zoom calls and helping people in the best way to protest to be effective. And they've had people from Australia and Canada come on for the training. Austria and Canada come on for training, which I think is just fabulous. So it's not as if nothing's happening. It's not as if nothing's happening in terms of protests. And Canadians will protest as well. What's also interesting is that Teslas are being burned and damaged and what have you down the States. And Musk is saying why, people thinks Democrats are doing that. I don't think they are. I could be wrong, but I don't think they are. And always think, well, because I comment on social media, but it's not happening in Canada. Why is it not happening in Canada? Sure, there's protests at dealerships, but that damage to the vehicles is not going on. I'm in an area where Teslas are a dime a dozen. And I remember when we first moved here, seeing Teslas, and they were kind of like, oh, look, there's a Tesla. It was kind of like, oh, look, there's a Ferrari. Well, Teslas are a dime a dozen now. Cybertrucks, I've even got 3 of them in the community that I've seen. So, but no one's doing anything to them because that's not who Canadians are. At this point, that isn't who Canadians are. Now, in the States, I think there's a bad element. I think there are people there that are doing it who want to create um, a distraction and want to make it seem as if it's against Musk. The protests are for sure, without a doubt. I don't know that the bomb, the fire, whatever they are when they throw in and they burning the cars, I don't believe that is from Democrats. I think that's just kind of a bad elements, vandalism, perhaps taking the opportunity, or even perhaps MAGAs wanting to shift the blame. So I'm hearing, don't fall for all the distractions out there, don't fall for all the noise out there. You have to be able to look at what's actually going on and then make up your mind. And in terms, and again, I'm coming back to our politics in terms, look and see who Poilievre's voting record is pretty easy to find, his voting record on everything. Um, and he's really not very much for anything. I can't see what he's for unless it's for making sure that rich people get their tax cuts and anything that benefits corporations without regulations. And as you know, regulations are what keep manufacturing plants safe, keep our rivers safe, our airs clean, our rivers clean, our air clean, keep our land clean. All these regulations, though, can be troublesome for corporations or costly. They're there for a reason. They're there to protect what's important. And in Canada, we value that kind of stuff, do we not? Do we not value our clean water and our clean lakes and our clean air and the forests? So I remember living in Toronto in the 70s when there'd be air advisory controls because the pollution was coming up from the States, from the wind was blowing it up. I remember when you couldn't swim in Lake Ontario and definitely couldn't swim in Lake Erie. You can now, mostly all the time. So regulations are important, though they can be costly for manufacturers. And so would they like to be deregulated? Some corporations definitely would. Definitely would, because it's cheaper. It's cheaper for them to not have to worry where they dump their waste or their garbage or what they're emitting into the air. It's cheaper just to do it the least costly way there is, and then that's benefits and their bottom line, which benefits all the shareholders. And when the shareholders are benefited, then that's a trickle down, let me tell you, because they're bonuses that are handed out in profits. So it starts, so the CEO gets the biggest bonus. And then there are bonuses that go down to the various management levels down below too. And does it ever hit the employees? Rarely does it hit employees. But all the top guys, they get their money. And how do they make sure they get their bonuses? They will do anything to hit those numbers. Some companies, not all companies, but some companies will do anything to hit those targets. And that anything isn't always good for the company or the environment. I'm generally speaking here. Generally speaking, not all companies are like this, but there are companies out there that are like that. So that's how it works. And I don't know, you think you're just listening to CEOs getting these big bonuses? It's not just them. It's the presidents and the vice presidents, the managers, and it goes down a number of levels until it stops. So there's that. Okay. On that note, so really what we're looking at now is what kind of world do we want to live in, right? Do we want to live in a world where the corporations are determining what is good for the people, right? Is that what we're looking at? Do we want a world that the corporations write the rules because they've bought the politicians in whatever way they've done that? And it could be just influence nice trips. I don't know, but there's all sorts of ways they can influence politicians to get them to vote or to look another way, I'm hearing. So is that the world we want to live in? Do you want to live in a world where when the food's being manufactured in the plant, that the manager of the plant is looking the other way over food safety because there's a bonus coming down the pipeline for him? Do you want that? Because that's what will happen. That's what will happen. They'll look the other way. Is that the world you want? Do you want the world where cars come off the line and no one's checking to make sure that they're safe? Is that what you want? Do you want a world where emissions are coming out, waste in the wastewater? And this has happened down the States where the water is poisoning the surrounding communities. Do you want that world? Do you want the world where they don't have to watch what they emit into the air, and consequently you're sick and coughing, and your kids who have asthma are suffering? Is that the world you want? Do you want the world where farmers can put whatever they want in their fields without regard for how it affects the food that they're growing? I mean, Monsanto's done some shitty things, or less than kind things to the planet. So is that the world you want? So the world that I want to live in is more an Avatar kind of world, a Star Trek kind of world, not the Dune or Hunger Games or I don't know. Have you ever seen the movie Tomorrowland? I suggest you watch that. It's interesting, and it's a nice little take on what's up. And that's what's up. That's what's up in the world right now. There really is. That energy is playing out right now. And the energy and it's a selfish energy. It's a bully, selfish energy. It doesn't take into account everyone else living on the planet, whether they're in our community, in our country, or in another country, or halfway around the world. Because we're all in this together. So you look at the refugees problem that happened that's happening in the US or that's happening in Europe is because instability in countries that are run by dictatorships are far-right people. So the economy has been decimated. Corporations do fine. The dictator does absolutely fine. Look at Putin. He's wealthy beyond belief, and all of his oligarchs around him. That's what happens. But the people suffer. And people suffer mightily. The infrastructure isn't kept up. You look at dictators in Syria when it becomes unstable. Afghanistan, Iraq, Africa. People start moving. Venezuela, Colombia. They all start moving because it's not safe to live where they live. They can't provide for their families. And it's not safe for them. So they start moving. They're on the move, and that creates a refugee. They'll do anything, and when you have them doing anything, you've got to wonder what are they What are they running away from? They're just looking for a better life. And yes, do they change the communities that they land in? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And can it be hard to be around someone that's so very different than you? It can be, until you find the commonalities. And that's difficult when there's so many that look so different and speak so different and have different cultures than you. Kids get it in school. So this is what the world's up against right now. But Trump talks about globalists. People talk about Carney as being a globalist. A globalist looks at the whole globe, the whole economics around the world, and looks at this. How it's a Star Trek thing. I'm sorry, it's a Star Trek thing where everyone can benefit. It doesn't have to be we get it all and they get nothing. It doesn't have to be like that. Will it turn around overnight? It will not. But we can make it easier. We can make it a lot easier on ourselves and on others. So you can be the kind of person that says every man for themselves, right? That's easy to say. If your life's doing good, that's because you're lucky. Your life's doing well. Have you worked hard for it? You probably have, and good for you. Good for you. You deserve that. But does that mean someone deserves less because they perhaps haven't had the opportunities that you've had, or the education that you've had, or I don't know, or. Sure, there's a lot of successful people out there that pulled themselves up by the bootstraps. Yes, there are. But a lot of them had support from their families, even though they didn't think they had, you know, or maybe they didn't, and something else was pushing them along. So who do I really look up to? The ones that come, the refugees that come from somewhere else into Canada and create a life for themselves and build a company and create jobs in Canada. That's a success story. And there's a lot of that going on in Canada. And there's a lot of that going on in the States. There's a movie called A Day Without Mexico, I think. So it shows what happens if there's no Mexicans working down in the States, because they work in all the hotels, all the manufacturing plants, the slaughterhouses, the meat rendering plants. They work in the farms. They work landscaping. They work cleaning. So imagine a day without Mexicans, like in the States. In Canada, imagine a day without, I don't know. I know there are a lot of young Indian women working the grocery stores in my area. And they're all lovely. They're absolutely all lovely. I'm working really hard, going to school and working really hard for a better life. Yeah, for a better life, period. And good for them. We should honor all of that. So where am I going with this? Here, pull a card. Here, pull a card and we'll tell you what to do with it. Okay. So I'm going to pull a card that's going to wrap this all up. Called Find Your Backbone. So she is bent over double. Find your backbone. This is to let you know not to be a pushover. For those that are listening to me, you are probably more than likely my peeps. You are probably more than likely someone who is kind and compassionate and empathetic. You're probably a liberal or an NDP. You're probably someone that's very inclusive and allowing. And so with that, you are going to butt up against people that are not that will tell you that you don't really know what's going on, that you need to get real, that you need to take the blinders off, take the rose-colored glasses off. And I'm here to tell them, no, you don't. Um, Now, I would suggest, no, yeah, I'm hearing yeah, to be a little bit informed on what's going on out there. Because you can be both. You can be spiritual and enlightened and informed about what's going on because the outside world is part of everything as well. So that you can say, yeah, I know that, but it doesn't matter because I don't believe that. I don't believe that the world's, that there's not enough for everyone. I don't believe that. There's enough for everyone. It's just how is it distributed? There's more than enough wealth on this planet. How is it distributed? For instance, when farmers, so I just thought about this, the dairy farmers have to dump milk in Canada because they have a quota, and that's because we protect our dairy industry, which is all well and good. But why are they dumping milk? There should be an option for them to have the milk donated, made into powdered milk, and that powdered milk can be given to the food banks or sent overseas to feed the starving kids, right? Doesn't that make sense? It's rather than dump it, that makes sense to me. So there's a lot that's good about Canada, but there's a lot where you kind of go, that really doesn't make sense. So acknowledge that it's not perfect. Acknowledge that, yeah, there's room for improvement. But where's that improvement going to come from? It's going to come from tax cuts. It's going to come from people that are unkind and don't have any compassion. People that think they have simple answers for complex problems, who only see things in black and white and not in grays. Because there's a whole lot of gray out there. There's a whole lot of shades on that color wheel, let me tell you. So that's where find your backbone. Be clear in who you are and be okay with that. Be okay with being who you are. So, in that, I am going to say big hugs, sending you blessings of ease during this time of massive change, big energies coming in. Really, it's been a bit of a struggle for me, slog when I go out for a walk. On one day, I went out for a walk the other day and I didn't go anywhere. I drove there, got out the car, and I went, I don't have it in me. Normally, I'll walk. I think, oh, I'll just walk 10 minutes and see what happens, and then I get into the groove of it when I feel like that. But I didn't even have that in me. And I honored that. I honored the fact that that's where I was. I honored the fact that I went to bed at 9 o'clock at night, which was rather early for me. So honor how you're feeling, honor any tiredness you have, honor the fact that maybe you want to eat a lot of treats right now because that sugar and starch is part of actually yeah, helping you with the energies and helping ground you. So probably best to go out and stand on the earth. Not quite as nice as eating a cookie. Um, and I forget to do that, but that's why I go for walks, is to ground myself, to be in nature. So do those things that nurture yourself. Stand up for who you are. You don't have to buck up against anyone. You can say, let's agree to disagree. This is the way I am and that's the way you are. And you don't have to engage if it doesn't feel safe. But if it feels safe, you can say, well, you can ask questions and you can give facts. And that's all I do is I give facts. It's pretty hard to go, well, just because I feel, because I've got a lot, when you've got instincts and intuition, that, most people are like, right, right. Um, your good friends might listen, but that's about it. So I'm out of here. You got this. Be kind to yourself, be kind to those around you, and know that it's all going to be just fine. Big hugs, love you. Lindell, bye.